Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm thrilled to show you how to recreate the mind-bending reverse blast effect from Tenet. So this is my very first tutorial on the channel and I have no idea like how to make a tutorial. So I apologize in advance if I do anything wrong. So stick around as we break it down so you can also add some FX magic to your own projects. This tutorial would be a walkthrough of my already made file, kind of like an overview. So it's not a step-by-step tutorial and I'm hoping like you know the basics of Houdini. I have divided the part 1 of the tutorial series into its own two parts, part A and part B, because the video was like becoming very long, near about 2.5 hours and so, because it includes all the FX part in it. So this is the part A of the video, and I will be uploading both the part A and part B together only. So right now, if you are watching part A, then the part B must be there online. So please visit that after completing this part A. Let's get started. Yeah, so as you can see here we have the original shot from Tenet and my version of it. It is not 100% accurately matched, but I tried to replicate the look and feel and the effects part of it. While looking at the shot for around like more than 1,000 times, I can say that this shot is completely practical. I think, like according to me, this shot feels like a completely practical shot, not a CGI one. So here we are dealing with two blasts actually. One is a reverse blast and one is a forward blast. So we'll just quickly go through the planning of the shot and how we approached it inside Houdini. So the second explosion, the bottom ones, which is going forward in time, starts after like 23rd in the 23rd frame. It begins to blow and it goes up to the end of the frame. So this bottom explosion will be pretty straightforward actually. So we will just have to break down all the elements in this bottom blast and we will replicate all the elements inside Houdini. And this top blast, which is going reverse in time, we just have to tweak it a little bit actually. We have to make a plan. So we can do, of course, we can do reverse simulations inside Houdini. But what I prefer is I will do reverse it after the simulation. So that's what I did for my version. If we see here, if we look closely, then I can see like a bunch of FX elements. So our main hero elements are first of all this is RBD. Okay, RBD simulation is there for sure. Then we have a lot of debris simulations, right? We have a lot of debris simulations. So we got two elements, and after that we have these dust elements which are coming off from the debris, right? So we have this dust element there. Then we have this dense blast which is coming there, right? Which is a little bit darker than all the other elements. So we have this dense blast. We have this other dense blast too, which is not very dark. It's actually whitish in color. So we have this other dense blast too. So if we go in the first initial frames of the blast, we can see this orange fire coming for around 2 or 3 frames. So we got that element too. Another element is there, So as we can see here, we see a lot of sediments coming from these areas, right? So we have these sediments falling from these areas. I have tried to replicate them as well. So we have the sediment smoke as well. So yeah, so we have all these elements, FX elements in this top blast explosion. Okay, the second blast explosion that is having like much more elements in that. So I'll just break it down to you also. Yeah, so in this second blast, we for sure we have this RBD, okay, and we have that yellow fire coming for 2 to 3 frames in the initial frames, right? So if we scroll a little bit further, then we are getting a lot of debris, right? So debris is another element in this bottom explosion, right? So after that, we are getting these dust spikes. So this will be a separate element. And if we go forward in the timeline, we can see more the dust smokes, like the previous top blast. We can see dust smoke here also. This dense smokes. See, we have this dense smoke here. So I have broke it down into two parts in the dense smoke. We'll do two separate dense smoke layers so we can comp it later inside nuke. Right? Yeah. If you look closely now, then we are getting these sediments layer here also. So this is another element which is common in both the explosions. So we have to do this sediment fall off, this sediment smoke we have to do, and this bottom explosion particularly is having a different element, which is this roof smoke, which is coming like off the roof. So if we go a little bit further in the timeline, then we are getting the smoke prominently visible there. So we get these kind of shapes. So this is another element. Yeah, so we have compared the original video from Tenet to our version, and then we have differentiated the two blasts, the top one and the bottom one. So we'll do the blasts in the proper timeline, which is forward in time, and then we will reverse it according to the shot, according to the requirement of the shot. So as we delve into the details, I'll walk you through the techniques and tools I use to achieve the effect, from understanding the concept to the execution. We'll dissect each element to see how close we have come to capture the essence of the original scene, right? So let's dive it deep into Houdini, the hip file of this project, and we'll see how we uh, broke down all the elements separately in the FX. This is the hip file for the chart. This hip file is available at Gumroad. I will be pasting the link below in the description. You can go and download the file and you can follow along. So in the setup now, we have these segments. This is the procedural building I made. Okay, this is our geometry. This is our top explosion, which is going backward in time, and this is our bottom explosion, which is going forward in time. These two setups are more or less the same. The only things which has been changed in the setups are like the direction and all, the force and all, and the treatment little bit. So I've kept them separately. I've treated them little bit separately. So that's why I made a complete different segments for both the explosions. So yeah, so I will explain it more in a bit. Okay, and this is a null. We are controlling the forward and backward lineup with this null. I will explain more about this in a bit. And these are our lights and camera, right? So in the geometry, we are making first. This is our main building model. Okay, so we are making a procedural building of the tenant. So it started with a box, right? So some boolean I've made some boolean holes inside it, more boolean like, to make the window holes. So basically it's a pretty straightforward and simple procedural building. It's not that complex. Okay, yeah. So we got our building model. This is a FG rock I made procedurally. It's not that important, but still you can try it. You can check like how it's been made. It's not very important. It is just an element for render. So I have added this in the comp. So it's not important. The only important thing in the geometry is our main building. This setup may look a little bit complex to you, but trust me, it's not that complex. I will explain everything step by step. So after our modeling, so here our modeling is done. We got our Tenet model. ready for effects, right? So these two is our master sim. Okay, so this geometry, this thing is our master simulation for the top explosion, and this is for the bottom explosion. I will come to it later. So first we'll go inside it. So here, what I'm doing is I have added these texts so that you guys don't feel very hard to understand, or there is no confusion in all these things. So first we are just importing our model. So first we got our model, then we are just selecting which parts to explode. So as you can see in the reference, we are only in the top explosion, we are only blasting this much of area. So I am just doing a simple boolean and separating this part of the geo from the whole building. So in the top blast, I'll be using only this much of the geometry. If I use the whole building, that will make no sense, right? So yeah, so this part of the geo is for our simulation. This thing is our static building. We will use it. We will use it for collisions. It just takes a little time to calculate this node, this convex decomposition node. It's a little bit heavy node. What it does is it creates individual convex polygons for each piece. So this is for our collision, and this is our geo for simulation. So once we get our geo for collision, then we are just fracturing it. I'm using RBD material fracture. You can use any other tool if you want to, but RBD material fracture is giving me proper results. Okay. So if I view with the exploded view, so this is how I'm fracturing my geo. In the reference, we can see the pieces are very large. Okay, we have very large chunks of this concrete, so that's why I've kept them like that. Okay, so here I'm also doing this thing also, this convex decomposition node, which just creates individual convex pieces for each piece. It just helps in a more accurate RBD simulation, I guess. So here our fracturing is done. Okay, so after we got our pieces, I'm just adding more details. I'm just adding more details in the geo. You will be seeing this cache node. You just have to cache it once, then you can see what it does. It's basically a chipping method, so we can do some organic chipping in the concrete, right? So this is for all the detailed chipping methods. Yeah, after that I'm using this node to get some big edge damages, right? So this chipping is for very tiny and small holes. Okay? After that I'm using this node for big edge damages, which will create more organic shapes. Okay, so as you can see, edge damage later to replace the low res pieces. So we will not be using this geometry for the simulation. We will be using this one, and later we'll just replace these detailed pieces with the low res ones. Okay, so this is we have our DOP sim here, the main RBD sim. So we have our DOP sim here. I would recommend to go to edit. I would recommend to go to view and keep it on for show for all nodes. What it does is it just shows all the connections. Okay, so it just makes the things more convenient according to me. So in the DOP network, we are getting the geometry to fracture from here, right? We got our geometry for fracture. We got our we got our static building, which is not simulating. It is just for collision. We got our ground plane, and we got some constraints which I haven't used for the final version because I was getting a decent result with keeping them on, with keeping them off actually. And for the force and for the blast force, yeah, I'll just rename it. This is for the blast force. This is coming from this part. Okay. So what I've done is, if I template my model and if I view my force, I'm just creating some small spheres, and I'm just scattering some points on them, and I'm just putting some I'm tweaking the normal in the force directions, and then I'm transferring the normal to the force attribute, and I'm only keeping them on for a single frame. If we view the switch, we are only seeing them for a single frame, which is second frame. So for a single frame, we are having them, and here we are creating some constants, which I'm not using. So our DOP simulation is here. Here we have a DOP import, which is importing the points to represent the object inside it, right? So we will bring the points to represent the objects, and we'll just cache it. Once we cache it, we'll get some points like these. If I, yeah, if I view from the camera, so these points are looking like this, okay? So once we get our points, and we have our high res pieces, which we created earlier with these chipping and edge damage. So now we are just transforming. Now we are just trans. Now we are just using this transform piece node to get them to their correct position. Okay. Then we are doing some post processing. We are doing some unpack thing. And here in this box, I'm just giving them edge details. As you can see, we don't have any edge detail right now. Okay. So I am giving the edge detail post simulation like this. So we have some edge detail right now. So this is a fun thing to do. You can do this edge detail like in the simulation also, like before the simulation also. But I prefer doing it after the simulation. Like if it's not making any huge difference in the simulation, then only I can make it in the post sim, right? So after that, I'm using a trail for the velocities, and then we get our main RBD. This is our main RBD. So we got our main RBD simulation. Now we come to here debris sims and instancing parts. Okay, if you can see, our main RBD setup is up to here only. So our RBD simulation is done here, and then we come to this debris sims and instancing part. It's also very simple, not that much complex. Here we are doing like 4 variations of debris simulations to get some organic shapes and varieties of debris. So first we got our debris source. I'll just play it for you. Just make the theme darker. Yeah, yeah, that looks better. Yeah. So we have our debris source, and we have to emit some particles from this. So in this pop network, we are emitting particles from the debris source. I use some pop speed limit, some pop drag, pop spin, and pop wind. Pop spin I've used to give the particles some random spin in their own axis to give some variations in the rotation. So we have a debris sim, and the debris sim, once we do the caches, the debris sim will look like this. I've cached it up to frame 35 only, because in the reference we can see the top blast is only happening up to 23rd or 25th frames. So we don't need to cache up to like full frame range. We just need to cache it up to like 23rd or 25 frames, but for safe side I have cached it up to 35 frames. Okay, so once we get our particles, after that I'm just creating the debris pieces. We are creating a box, we are boolean fracturing it. Now we have some random pieces. Then I'm blasting a single piece from it. Sorry, not a single piece. I'm blasting around 31 pieces of it. And then I'm doing a simple assemble, and then I'm doing a copy to points. I'm using variant so that we get some variations, so that we don't get only a single debris piece in all the points. We get some variations in all the pieces. So we have to take this and write here variant, and we have to use this wrangle. I'll just rename it variant create. Yeah. So we are creating the variant attribute in our particles, and then we are doing some copy to points, and then we are caching it. So once we cache the big debris, it looks like this. Yeah, I've cached it up to 35 frames only. The same thing I'm doing more 3 times, and all these other 3 debris setups are similar to the first one only with some minor changes. So in the second debris simulation, we are using the first debris source only. Okay, so the debris source is same. We are just using some different inherent velocities, some variance, and some minor settings, and the rest of the things are pretty much same. The wind values are a little bit changed so that we can replicate the feel of that these little bit lighter than the previous ones. So once we catch these debris, it looks like this. I've cached it to up to 35 frames only, so it will look like this. So we got our debris points, and for these debris too, what I'm doing is I'm creating debris pieces from our original fracture that we did in the main building geometry, so that it looks little bit authentic, so that it get feels like these pieces belong to the building only. So I'm just using the building, I'm giving it a boolean, I'm using this piece. Okay. I'm using this part of the building, and I'm just giving it some fractures. Okay, so we can see the fractures here. So these are the debris pieces I'm using in this in the second simulation. So again we do the copy to points thing, and we have the simulation like this. Yeah, so we cache it again, and we have the output like this. So our second debris is done. Now let's come to our third debris. Earlier in the video I said to keep it on, but actually we have to keep this on, show for selected nodes. Otherwise it will create unnecessary complex networks. So it's better to keep this on instead of this one. So I'll just select this one, show for selected nodes. So it will just show us connections for the selected node. Yeah, so here we come to our debris number 3. For the debris number 3 we are using different debris source. Okay, we are using different debris source. Actually the debris source is same, but it's with some different parameters, some different settings. So we are giving it little bit point velocities in the upward direction. In the pop network, we are doing the same thing. Pop speed limit, pop drag, pop spin, and pop bend. The rest of the things are same. So once we cache it up to like 35 or 40 frames, we'll see something like this. This debris is for all the minute details, all the minute particles in the debris. So these debris points, these debris will be very, very small in size, like to sell the scale of the scene. Here I'm using a box and I'm bringing a small debris piece from that. And I'm bringing some few small debris pieces from that. And then I'm doing copy to points. This variant thing is very important, guys. Otherwise, we'll get only one piece uh, instanced in all the points, which won't be looking very natural. So we want this variant thing to be on, and for this variant thing to work, we need this attribute triangle. So we have our copy points, and then we cache it up to 40 frames, and then we see some debris like this. The same thing we are doing for the last debris sim. We are using debris source. Here we have the debris source. We are giving some random angular velocity with this attribute w, and then we are doing that same pop network, and then we are doing these copy points. This debris simulation is for the initial spike blasts which come which moves very fast in the initial frames. So once I cache it, we'll have something like this. It will create some spike like shapes. So here we have our 4 variations of debris. So after we merge them all, we'll get something like this. I've given each of the debris some different colors, so it will look like this. As our main RBT simulation and the debris simulation are done for our top explosion, we'll now see how we are bringing them out to the OBJ level for the rendering stuff. So as you can see, here I am bringing the RBT building render. All these nodes are for secondary simulations. I will come to that part in some time. So this is our main simulation. This is all our secondary simulations. So this is another geometry. So inside that, I'm object merging the part of the building which will explode, and along with the main RBT simulation, and I'm switching them in the frame where the blast is happening. So the blast is happening at let's say in my file the blast is happening at frame number 3rd. So I'm just switching them in the frame number 3rd. Before that, it's not breaking. And here I am object merging the other half of the other half of the building, which is not simulated. I am merging these two. I've given some colors. I've given some color noises into it. The color noises are being used in the material. The material part I'll cover in part 2. This is a node I made. This is for how much motion blur we want, but yeah, it's not that much important because we can control the motion blur directly from the camera. Okay, directly from the camera settings. So this is a wrangle I made. It's not very complex, but it's not very important also. So you can turn it off. Okay. So this is our output, and this part is where we are controlling the lineup with that null, with this null, this lineup control null. Uh, this part is linked to that null in the OBJ level, this master null. Okay. So I will explain what the null is doing in some time. Once we see the second simulation, right? Once we see the second bottom simulation, once we get the output of that, once we get the RBD output of that, then I can show you like how this null is like how this null is working and what it does actually. So till then, all the things are pretty straightforward. Okay. So here, this will be our output. This null will be our output. So this is I'll just turn the model off. So this is our RBD output, as you can see here. This is our RBD output, and with the same method, we are bringing the debris here, debris sender. Yeah, we have done 4 debris simulations there. This fifth one is for the sediments, which I have talked about earlier. So the sediment simulation we will do in a bit. So I'll just keep it off for now. So here all these 4 debris are merging, and we are doing that motion blur control, which is not needed. And then this part is linked to that line of control null. Okay, and so here this will be our output. So here we got our main RBD simulation for the top explosion and our debris simulation as well. So we'll do a quick flipbook. I've just changed the background, I'll just turn the lights on. Yeah. Let me do this smooth shaded. Yeah, that looks better. I'll just do a quick flipbook with the main camera. Yeah. So this is how it will look with the RBD and the debris combined. Right? Pretty simple and straightforward. We'll get the feel of the impact more when we'll do the other secondary simulations, the dust simulations. For now, I'll just turn these two off, and we'll quickly go through the second bottom explosion simulation. Right? This bottom explosion simulation is more or less the same, but we can say it's a little advanced version of the first this simulation, right? So we are diving into a more little bit advanced, the advanced version. Okay, so bottom explosion simulation, yeah, master simulation. So this is the setup, right? Again, in this setup, I have put some texts into the sticky notes so that you guys don't get any kind of confusion and all, like what things are doing what things. So this one, we'll see what we're doing in the setup. So first of all, we're just object merging our main building model, right? So we are object merging the main building model, and we are separating out the part in which the simulation, the RBD simulation will be happening. So as you can see in the reference, the bottom explosion is happening in this part only. So I have just separated it out. So this will be our building for the RBD simulation, and this will be our the other half of the building. We'll use it also. We'll use it as well in the RBD simulation, because once the bottom explosion happens, this part will also fall onto that. So this part will also be there in the RBD simulation. So in the previous setup, we were just keeping the other part static, but in this setup, we'll just use it in the RBD simulation as well. Yeah. Now we come to our fracturing part. So here we have two boxes. One, as you can see, is for top part fracturing RBD material, and the other one is for the bottom part fracture RBD material, right? So we are taking the top part from this node. In here, I'm not using the convex decomposition node. The convex decomposition node, this output we will use in the simulation, and this output we will use for the fracturing. So in this part, I'm using these Boolean nodes to separate them out, to separate these parts out, because in the reference I've seen that these parts uh, gets dismantled as soon as the blast happens. So I wanted these parts to be completely separate. So I just done some boolean node and again merged them. Okay. Now we are doing this RBT material fracture. So the here the fracture is not very high res or something. So in this top part, the RBT material is not giving. We are not doing like a lot of pieces. We are just fracturing it into these large chunks, like to match to the reference. In the reference, the top part is not completely fracturing. So this is our fracture, and again we'll use that node, convex decomposition node, to get our geometry ready for the effects. Yeah, so this is our geometry ready for RBT simulation. This is our RBT pieces output. Again, we were doing some edge damage to make it a little bit more organic. So as you can see in this switch node, now making not making much difference. I don't know what happened, but yeah, it's not very important. Okay, and we come to the bottom part fracture RBT here, which is this one. Yeah, so we'll just fracture this part also. So we're object merging it. We are doing some booleans, and we are again merging them together. And then we are doing the RBT material fracture. I am trying to match the size and shape of the pieces as close as to the reference. In the reference, we can see that the blast is happening mainly for from 4 points. So I've just taken a add node, and I've taken 4 points, sorry 5 points, and I've point replicated it, and I've connected it to and I have connected it to the extra Varana points here. So we'll get more fracture in these areas. So again, same, we are doing this convex thing. We're cleaning it up. We are doing some assemble. We are giving some active and inactive groups, and our geometry is ready for RBT simulation. This part will be inactive because the base of the house will be there. It will not explode or it will not collapse. So the base of the house will be there. The rest of the things will explode and fall. So the base of the house, I've made it inactive. Just to be clear, I'm using this output for the only for the simulation because this is a low res output. Okay, so that our simulation don't become very heavy. I am making it high. I am making it high res here. I will replace the low res pieces with the high res ones after the simulation. So the RBT pieces is here. We are doing some edge damage. We are merging it. As you can see, this tipping method sometimes gives this kind of errors. Actually, what it does is it sometimes get failed to capture each piece and distances from the crevices and put the chipping on that. So here we are missing this big piece here. So what I've done is I've just blasted this piece only, and I've added it separately because this is the only way I thought like this will work. Other than that, I couldn't find any other solution for that. So only this piece is not getting these kind of chippings on it. So this is kind of cheat we have to do. So here is our geometry for transform pieces later, right? I'm doing this switch. This switch is picking up this merge only. Okay, and now we have the our main RBT simulation for the bottom part. So yeah, in the RBT simulation, if we go to first frame and I visualize it, the DOP network. Yeah, so in the DOP network, we have this. This is our DOP network. If we go inside the DOP network, It is kind of the same for the top and the bottom explosion. In here, we have this lower piece, we have this upper piece, we have the force here. Okay, we have the force here. I'll just rename it to force. Yep. We have the speed limit, which is just like we have this speed limit, which is acting as a big drag for the pieces which are going too far with the velocities. So my maximum speed is here is 10. We have this pop force, like we have some wind and some noise in the air. Then we have this pop drag, little bit of air resistance. Okay, and we have this yellow glow. So this yellow, this this constraint is acting on the top part of the building. I'm not using constraints from the bottom for the bottom part of the building because like not using constraint is a bit odd method, but it was giving me proper results. So because like the whole building is getting shattered, right? So that's why without any constraints I am getting proper results. But I'm using constraints on the top part because the top part won't be like break wholly. The top part will break a little bit. It will get some cracks and all. With the cracks, it will just fall on the other pieces. It will just fall below. So yeah, I'm just using the constraints on the top part. Gravity is there, the ground plane is there, and this is my RBD simulation. If I cache it, I'm caching the DOP import, which is getting the points to represent the object. If I cache the points, I'm getting something like that, this, and I'm caching only the bottom part here, right? The top part I'm caching there. In the bottom part is coming like this. If I see with the camera, the bottom part I'm getting like this, and the top part I've imported here. This is the same DOP import. These two are the same DOP import, but here I'm importing the upper part, and here I'm importing the lower part. So I've cached the upper part also. The upper part points is coming like this. Yeah, they're just falling onto them. And one thing I just wanted to tell you, this force thing is little bit different in the bottom explosion. If I template my model and I show you my force here, the setup is same, like the top explosion, the setup is same. But here I'm using like 4 points because in the top explosion, in the reference, we can see the blast is happening from like 4 points there. So I'm first taking a spear, I'm giving it a little bit noise, and I'm transforming it a little bit, and transforming it after 3 times. I'm getting the scatter points here. The scatter points are here in these regions. And if I visualize the force here, the normal is what the force is driving from. So if I visualize the normal here, we can see the force's direction is matching to our reference. So with the help of these four spheres here, we are scattering some points, and then we are driving the force direction here. And this switch is the same. We're just turning this for a single frame. If I visualize the switch, in the first frame it's off, in the second frame it gets on, and again it gets off in the third frame. Well, this is our blast force. Cool. So this blast force is acting in the DOP network. We have cached our points, and it's time and it's time for our and now it's time for the transform pieces. So we have the points. If I visualize this transform piece, sorry, the normal was on. The point is also on. My bad. And I have to turn the template off here. Yeah. In the transform pieces, we have the points. The points are there, and I'm getting the pieces from this part. I'm getting the highest pieces from this switch, and I'm transforming the pieces. We are deleting the attribute, this color attribute we are deleting. And here, and in this part, I am adding those like small interior details which we are which we haven't done earlier. We are doing it post sim. So if I visualize this in a frame where it's mostly where the pieces are mostly in the air, as you can see here, which piece should I pick? Yeah, let's pick this one. Yeah, yeah. As you can see, here there are like no interior details. It is just a flat thing, and here we are doing some interior details. So interior details are done. We are doing this trail thing for our velocities. And in my version, a single piece of chunk was acting a little bit weird, so I just blasted it and I transformed it a little bit so it doesn't feel that much weird anymore. And after that minute cheat here, and I'm just merging that piece all again. Here I have the main RBD simulation for the bottom part. Okay, so the bottom part, so the RBD for the bottom part here is done, and we are getting back to the top part. Okay, so top part, same, the dop import is here. We're catching the point here, and we are getting the high res geometry from the switch node, and we are doing the transform piece here. We're unpacking it. Here we are doing some collision sources for the secondary simulations, which we'll do later. Same with the bottom, same with the top part. We're doing the collision source and the bottom part. We have to like keep these collisions ready because later we'll be using them in the secondary simulations. So anyway, we are just unpacking the top piece, and we are again adding some interior details, and like that our upper part RBD is ready. Cool. And if you want to visualize all this upper part and lower part together, then it will look like this. Yeah. So our RBD simulation for the bottom explosion is done, and we are going to the debris sim now. For the debris sim, we are doing the same as the other explosion that we did earlier. So we are just getting this debris source. The debris simulations we are doing only in the bottom explosion, or sorry, the bottom part. We're not doing any like we are doing little bit debris sim in the top part, but most of them are from the bottom part only. So let the debris source cache a little bit for 17 frames. Yeah, it's done. So here we have the debris source. So the debris source will look like this. Yeah, the debris source is there. One thing I always wanted to know, like this debris source, it always gets me this kind of result only when I use the transform piece node. It doesn't act if we don't have the transform piece. I don't know the science behind it, and I don't know like what the transform piece is doing to the debris source. If you know the answer and if you know the reason, then please let me know in the comment section below. So uh, enlighten me with this thing. So debris source is there. In debris source, the point velocity we are adding some additional velocity in the debris source. If I visualize the velocity, the debris source we are getting this, and the point velocity we are getting this. We are just adding little bit of velocity here. Here what I'm doing, I'm just creating a small group, a small bound in which the particles are getting there, and I'm just giving these section of particles uh, a little bit force in the z direction, because my goal is to like match to the reference as much as I can. So in the reference I can see the particles are going like heavily in this direction. So I'm just giving those particles some extra velocities in this area, in this direction. In here I'm deleting some points, and these points are coming and these points I'm selecting with this group node. with this group node, I'm just like same doing a box, doing a bound, and I'm just deleting this portion of points to get somewhat similar result to the reference. So I'm just deleting those points. And the switch node is just picking the debris source after 3 frames, so we don't get unnecessary points in the initial frames, right? So, and after that we are doing this pop sim. We have the setup which is more or less the same as the earlier explosion we did. We have the source, we have the pop drag, we have the pop spin, we have the pop wind. The pop spin is giving some random rotation to the to the points in their own axis, so they don't fall all in the same direction. Sorry, in the same rotation. This is important, I think, to get those organic rotation in the debris. We have the ground plane. We have these two collisions. This collision is for the upper part of the RBD simulation, and this is for the bottom part, and these are coming from here. This we made earlier. This is collision for the bottom part, and this collision is for the upper part. Cool. Here the constant birth rate, I'm reducing it with time. In the first frame, it's emitting like around this much of points, and by the end of the fifth frame, we are getting very less points. So this is a simple pop. This is a simple particle setup. We get our particles and we cache it by turn of the velocity. Yeah. So this is our particles, and they look like this. And here I'm caching it up to 54 frames. Cool. We have the particles. We're giving it some random rotation and p scales. This attribute is for the variation. This attribute triangle is for the variation. We are getting our debris pieces from this part for the instancing, and here we're instancing the debris, and after instancing and caching, here we get the our first debris piece. After insta- after the- After instancing and caching, here we get our first debris piece simulation, and this look like this. These are for the big chunks of debris pieces. So our first debris simulation is done. In the second debris simulation, we are using the same source. Right, we are using the same source. Only minor changes are there in the pop network. The velocity little bit different, and the wind is little bit more, I guess. The collisions are there. The same setup. If we cache it, we get something like this. Here the turbulence is little bit more. The turbulence and the wind is little bit more acting here. I'm doing some in this part. I'm doing some cleanup for the particles, because some particles sometimes act differently, and we have to move them, and we don't need them. So here I'm doing some kind of cleanup in there. Cool. We get our final points, and for the debris instancing, we are just object merging our building which we fractured earlier. Here, this is we are object merging there. After object merging, I'm doing a small boolean, like the same. This is the same thing that we did earlier, right? So after some boolean fracture, we get this much pieces. This much pieces is enough for the instancing, I guess, because it's a very fast moving shot, and we don't see that much of action going on. As you can see here, here all the pieces are looking proper. I'm doing this attribute triangle, and I'm and I'm transforming all to their position 0. So we don't get any offset with the particles after instancing. So we are just transforming all the pieces to the position 0. After the copy the points, we get something result like this. As you can see, these pieces are very thin. They don't have that much volume in them. These are very thin wood pieces. That's why in this pop setup, I've just increased the wind and the turbulence, because as they are very thin, so they will act more on the wind. So after caching, they look like this. If I turn the grid off, yeah, they look like this. So we got our second debris simulation. The third debris simulation, we are doing different debris source, like some different settings. Some settings are different in this debris source. Yeah, so here we have our debris source. Initially, when I was doing my R&D, I made this wrangle. Here, what is happening? If I connect it to my debris source, then if I visualize it, it is just deleting the points based on their velocity length. So the points which are having very less amount of velocity, they are getting deleted here, and the particles which have like a long velocity length, they are not getting deleted basically. So I haven't used this node, but if you want, you can use it in your file, in your other file, or in your other project if you want. So anyway, so this is our debris source, and I was doing this group thing. I don't think it's acting very much. Yeah, it's not acting anyway. So we have this switch after that, and this switch, it's switching with the null and our points on the third frame, so that we don't get any unnecessary points in the initial frames. We're giving this random angular velocity. We are doing a simple pop simulation, and once we catch the simulation, we get a result like this. If we turn the velocity off, we get the result like this. It's for like all the light and tiny particles, which are smaller in size. So we have our particles. We are doing our cleanup here, and after cleanup, we have these particles, and we have our geometry for the instancing, and we're doing the instancing here. See, the particles are very small. So after caching, they look like this. In the in the reference, we can see the particles are there in the air for a bit. They are lingering there. So they are not instantly they are not instantly falling on the ground. They are uh, they are just lingering on the air for a bit, because that's how like real debris pieces, which are very small in size, act in the air. So here we have our third debris simulation. This is the fourth debris simulation which I made. Yeah, the debris source is there. Yeah, here I'm using that triangle. Here as you can see, the debris source is coming like this, and here I'm using this wrangle, which is deleting some points based on their velocity. So here I'm using this wrangle, and I'm doing this clip node, and I'm just clipping this part of the particles, because in the reference we can see that we are getting a lot of debris and smoke from this area of the building. So I wanted to do it separately, and I wanted to treat it separately, so that I can so that and I wanted to have it, and I wanted to do it separately so that I can have control over it. So if I template my building, You can see the part I'm talking about. So in my version, I think I clipped this part, not this part actually. I clipped this part. So you can adjust the clip according to your own imagination or how you want the simulation to go. But in my final version, I use the points from this part, not from this part. Anyway, so we have our particles and we have some noise in the velocity, and we are doing the same switch and angular thing here. We are doing this we are doing this particle simulation. The setup is same like the other ones, but only some settings are changed. Like here, I'm not using this pop speed limit, right? And I'm not using variance as well. I'm just using this inherent velocity. Pop wind is there, spin is there, drag is there. Yeah, collision is there, of course. And after caching, it looks something like this. Yeah, I'm caching it to like up to 55 frames. For the bottom simulation, I guess 54 and 55 frames. This much of range will do the work. So after caching it look like this. These particles are lingering in the air for a much longer time, as you can see in the reference. But in the final version, I emitted the particles from the opposite side of the building. So our particle is here. Here we have our fifth debris simulation, which I used. This debris sim is similar as the older sims from the blast we did earlier, which is from like sim 1. So you can explore this on your own in the file. Pretty similar setup actually, nothing new. Yeah, these are my final debris pieces. When I combine all of them, it kind of look like this. I have given them some different shades of brown, and after combining all them, they look like this. And along with them, if I keep my RBT simulation on and I do a flip book, then I'm getting a result like this. Let me just do the flip book real quick. Yeah, so the flip book is done, and here is the flip book with the RBT and the debris all together. So this is how it looks. So as you can see, it is matching to the reference as well as our own result. It's properly matching. The top part is also falling properly. The timing and all are matching. The the movement of the debris is they're all matching to the reference. So here we are done with the RBD and debris sim of both the top and the bottom explosion. So now we can see how this lineup control is working. So once the simulations are done, so we have to import it here, right? So as we did in the earlier explosion, we imported this RBD building render and debris render thing. So we'll do the same thing here. So the RBD building render, if we go inside the geometry, here we are importing the our main RBD simulation, right? The main RBD simulation is here, and this is the main RBD simulation for the upper part, and this is our main static building. And these two I'm merging, and this I'm switching in the frame when the blast is happening. So if I visualize the switch, the blast is happening at frame second. So after frame second, we are seeing the fractured geometries, right? So this way we are getting like a proper result. Okay. So after switch, I blasted some points. We need to get into a good frame to visualize what is happening, right? So 20 frame must be good. Yeah, yeah, it's good enough. So I was blasting a piece. As you can see, this piece is being blasted. So Actually, what was happening, like, only a single piece was acting a little bit weird, so I just blasted it. Okay, and I give it some color. After the color, I'm giving it some noise. This noise is same like as the earlier as the earlier simulation. This noise is being used in the material. The material part I will cover in the second part of the tutorial. So here I'm applying the materials, and I'm giving it this motion blur control, which we don't need actually. We can turn it off. Right. So, and after that, this is our line of control, right? And so this and this will be our output. So this is our RBD output for the second explosion. So we got our RBD simulation ready. The RBD simulation is ready, and now we need to import the debris here. If let me just turn off the RBD. Inside debris, what's happening? We get the big debris, we get the second debris, we get the smaller debris, we get this debris as well, the fourth one. So these two are also kind of debris. This is the sediment debris that I talked about earlier. We haven't done it yet. This comes under the secondary simulations, and also this one. This simulation I done it in the secondary simulation itself. So these two debris will look into. So this will be looking in some time. So we can turn it off for now. And now we are getting our four debris simulations here. If I merge them all. Here are all our devices. Motion blur we can turn it off, and after that we are getting this our main output after this line of control. Okay, so debris and RBD both are ready for the bottom explosion as well as the top explosion. So now we can quickly see how this forward and backward control, that is the line of control, how it's working, and how I've done the whole setup.